Good morning, guys. I'm going to get on here real quick like I always do. I'm doing my morning pages this morning. I was really taken aback yesterday. Sometimes I talk a little bit quick because I do this, I don't really practice or write notes. Sometimes I try to write a few notes, but usually I don't because I get too nervous and I just try to put it out there. And I always think, well, I can edit it later. Oftentimes I don't want to go back and look at something because it's very painful, these things. So I'm just going to do some of the little recap here. I can see this, I've been watching this Jenny Gage, if you get a chance. She's talking about being married for a long time to one of these MAGA people. And I didn't really know. I wasn't ever really political because I grew up with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and so I had Bible studies when I was younger, my godmother. So I didn't really get too political until I got into my 30s, and I was amazed how when you're, a poor kid growing up, you don't often, you don't really understand the power dynamics enough. And I think if I had understood that a little more, certainly when it comes to politics, and certainly when it came to my relationship, my marriage, the power balance was unbalanced from the beginning because he was almost 10 years older than me. And I didn't realize how that would factor in. I mean, I thought it was a good thing in a way, he was older. I figured he was, more established, which is what seemed to be in the beginning, but so much of it was lies and so much about who he was. He was looking for a servant, and I ended up being that person after married for 20 years. And everybody thought it was funny. His family, he did, his friends, certainly the community when I found out I was being divorced on a police report, and the attacks from the community during this whole Trump, whipping everybody up into this frenzy. So the past decade was the divorce, menopause, which made it extremely difficult. Not so much my symptoms because I had worked out right along, but because I was made homeless. The end of my career in business, they destroyed. Which was devastating. I'd worked a long time, and certainly growing up with nothing and growing up on welfare, it was very important to me to make a career and put one together, and I did. And it's something that I really liked. And I had started a home-based business also, and they destroyed that. They took all my art portfolios. I had just gotten a studio put together from 20 years of saving and being frugal. And of course I didn't have children, so the added burden with women that have children, I was fortunate or unfortunate, as you might want to look at it. We can do another video about that, how difficult it was. And it certainly wasn't something I directly chose. It was something that happened to me and I accepted, and that was a ton of abuse too. Certainly my ex-husband never wanted children, but he went around telling everybody behind my back, certainly this MAGA group, about how you're supposed to have children, or women that don't have children are like evil incarnate. And my community has been very abusive, certainly throughout school. You're not supposed to be educated. So if you get a chance, check out her videos. I'm really starting to like what she's putting out, and I'm kind of doing the same thing with my videos. But I look back this week, we all once in a while have to take stock and look back where we came from. And then with the homelessness, all the abuse that these people were attacking me to cover it all up, which I know now it was one big cover up. I didn't know at the time because I was in shock. I'd been sexually assaulted. I had prior trauma from things that had happened to me as a kid that I dealt with a lot of it, but there was some things, certainly with activities that I wanted to be involved in with, whether it was ballet or horses or some of the other things that I wanted to do as a kid, take horseback riding. I wanted to continue with ballet because I love ballet, but often denying your agency and invalidating you is a big part of that. And grieving all these relationships has been very difficult, certainly with my mother, certainly my immediate family. On top of that, the sexual assault, which brought a whole other layer of trauma into my life, certainly because I knew these people. I knew their family from growing up. My ex-husband was friends with these people, and I can't imagine that you would do this to someone just before I was going to divorce. And they knew that. When I went to this party, they lured me there with this idea that, oh, we didn't see your husband, and they were always blaming me for all this stuff, and it was a lie. It was just to cover it all up. And then, of course, learning about all this trauma. And certainly a lot of this started as the Me Too movement started. So I was fortunate to have some information. So it's always good to look back where we came. Sometimes I know this whole decade I felt was, just a waste, and I felt so demoralized that I'd worked so hard to get to a point to be able to relax a little bit and go to the lake and have a little fun and just to be okay for my life. I remember sitting there and looking at everybody's doing well, and I thought, gee, we can finally all get together, and maybe now that the kids are grown, everybody can, have a little bit less stress, and maybe that's what it was. And I had no idea the horror that these people were going to inflict to try to cover it all up. So I want to touch base on today about, dealing with this sort of retaliation from people. And certainly in my family, it was always covered up. Excuse me. I'm like, this heat makes you not only the heat from what's going on, but not being able to get sleep and overheating my body with whatever this is. And it makes it very difficult. But this week I'm going to try to get back to the gym. I'm just going to drag myself there. This abuse has been very difficult, and they continue it. But we can see in the larger reality, oftentimes the micro is the macro, and I can see in the larger reality this inability to come to terms with either these people, or someone, or you have these things in yourself that you need treatment. Certainly people in my family have never had treatment. They've been abusive. I turned around and I got lured into this relationship with my ex-husband, and then got married, and he was extremely abusive towards the end, and it had been set up from the beginning. And we know now that's a form of trafficking, and that's basically what they did all through my childhood. And then when I got out on my own, they lured me back to Amsterdam. My first relationship, my first boyfriend was set up here in Albany, and then they lured me home. Oh, come home, go to the beach. My family was so they're always trying to get me away from either pursuing my career or pursuing education or pursuing a life apart from them. But then I'll come home, or I'll be involved with them, and then they'll say they don't want anything to do with me. So it's very, very passive aggressive. So I just wanted to touch base today and let you know that, once in a while we have to take stock, and we have to congratulate ourselves on how far we have come, how we have survived. And we can see in the larger reality, the collective that we're in at this time, that this is what these people continue to do. And certainly law enforcement, certainly our court system, this Judge Lorman, Judge Tomlinson, Judge Katina, Judge Skoda, and some of the other judges up there really, really need to check themselves and get some training or some treatment, because we need to replace them with judges that can actually handle some of this stuff instead of continuing to blame the victim. It's pretty repugnant, and certainly when it comes to children, and certainly the historical, this look back window stuff just isn't going to work. It usually takes a long time for victims to come to terms with some of the stuff. And in my case, everybody knew, and this is still the choice they made, how to handle this case. So be safe out there, guys, and continue pushing forward, and hang in there, and keep the faith. And I'm going to try to do the same this week with trying to get to the gym. Take care, guys.